Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Breakout Room 2. Let me just change the settings on this meeting so that folks can come in. Okay. So I hope you're having a great day and enjoying all of the great conversations that we're also fortunate to hear about and be a part of. My name is Maria Sharova, and I am the Citizen Science Manager at Clean Air Carolina, and I will be moderating the question and answer portion of this session. So a few housekeeping notices as we get started. You'll notice that we are recording the session, and it will be available via Whova in the near future, maybe a week and a half or so. You are completely in control of what we see and hear. Please feel free to show and hide your video as you prefer. You're all muted by default, but if you'd like to pose a question, please raise your hand and we'll open up the floor for you to pose that question. Also, feel free to use the chat function at the bottom of your screen to pose any questions to the speakers, or if you would like to pose an anonymous question, feel free to message me directly, which you can do by clicking on my name in the chat. So with that, I will introduce our speakers. So right here in Charlotte, communities of faith are reimagining their lawns and their outdoor spaces to be rich opportunities to grow food for congregants, neighbors, and friends in need. Take a look at just two different ideas and begin to think about what you can create at your house of worship. So today we are joined by two speakers who I will briefly introduce, but I'll let them share more details about themselves. First, we have Summer Minshew, who is the board chair for Shalom Green, the Shalom Park Environmental Initiative. Summer is also the owner and managing partner at Eco Impact Consulting. We are also joined by Reverend Reggie Payne-Weens, who you may recognize from the panel earlier today from the Chapel of Christ King in Uptown Charlotte. So we will start by hearing from Summer.
Great, thank you, Maria. I'm going to start by sharing my screen. Okay, so my name is Summer Minshew, and I am entering my third year as board chair for Shalom Green, the Shalom Park Environmental Initiative. Shalom Green was established in 2015 at the same time as the Shalom Park Community Garden was envisioned. Shalom Green is supported by the Foundation of Shalom Park and serves in partnership with the Levine Jewish Community Center, Temple Bethel, and Temple Israel. Shalom Green is powered through funding by the Jewish Federation of Greater Charlotte and through giving by our partners and community donors. So a brief tour of Shalom Park for those who are not familiar. The 54-acre campus of Shalom Park provides a welcoming environment, not only for the local Jewish community, but for the entire Charlotte metro area, with an array of educational, religious, recreational, entertainment, cultural, and community service offerings. There is no equivalent concept found anywhere else in the nation. Shalom Park stands as a preeminent example of cooperative community-based organization. The mission of the Foundation of Shalom Park is to manage all of these facilities that you see here and the resources of Shalom Park on behalf of the community. Shalom Green is a program hosted by the Foundation of Shalom Park. Shalom Green has a separate operating budget and is managed by a group of Jewish community volunteers who are dedicated to promoting an understanding of Jewish environmental values. Shalom Green is united in its commitment to sustainability and its mission to educate and mobilize members of the Charlotte community on environmental issues and Jewish values related to sustainable living and protecting the planet. So basically, we're the green team for Shalom Park. So we have 3 areas of focus. I'm just going to run through them very quickly. Our first pillar is education. So we partner with organizations across Shalom Park to provide educational opportunities to community members. We base our teachings around some core Jewish environmental values that include Tikkun Olam, which is acts of kindness performed to perfect or repair the world. Bal Tashlit, do not destroy, and Shomrei Admah, being guardians of the earth. We are also working to reduce the carbon footprint of Shalom Park facilities. In 2015, Shalom Green, in conjunction with park partners and the U.S. Green Building Council, created a plan builder report for the entire campus. This half-day charrette was attended by representatives from Temple Israel, Temple Bethel, the Foundation of Shalom Park, Interfaith Power and Light, and sustainability professionals. The resulting action plan identifies opportunities to reduce landfill waste across Shalom Park facilities, explores ways to reduce energy and water use on Shalom Park through energy audits, lighting, plumbing, fixture retrofit, and seeks to address site issues like walkability and increased areas supporting native and adaptive vegetation. To date, several projects have been implemented across the park, generating real metrics of success, including reduced utility costs and increased diversion of waste from landfill. And of course, the reason you guys are all here today in this breakout session is our third pillar, which is to maintain the Shalom Park Community Garden. The Shalom Park Community Garden is a critical hub for environmental education efforts and is proving to be a powerful tool for educating community members. The garden is free and open to all. The Shalom Park Community Garden was envisioned to address issues of food insecurity and help the community witness firsthand the correlation between environmental justice and social justice. Shalom Green has, since its inception in 2015, partnered with Jewish Family Services of Greater Charlotte to donate fresh produce from the Shalom Park Community Garden to their food pantry, which serves several hundred clients annually. We are working harder than ever to meet the needs of the community. In 2020, despite the challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic, Shalom Green logged over 285 volunteer hours through monthly garden workdays and by Camp Mindy youth campers. Over 330 pounds of fresh produce, representing over 95% of the garden's annual yield, was donated to Jewish Family Services Food Pantry, and over $2,000 value. So I want to go into a little bit of how it started for those of you who are interested in starting your own. So the 5 park partners came together to envision the garden as a space to grow food and educate community members of all ages and physical abilities. The garden committee was also formed and made up of both expert and novice gardeners in our community. And these people committed to help build and then maintain the garden. This community buy-in is critical to the success of any garden project. So we had buy-in, and next we needed some funds. And we were able to secure a grant from the Clear Path Foundation with the help from Temple Bethel clergy, Rabbi Judy Schindler, who we all heard from earlier, and I believe is in this session as we speak. So thank you for attending. She is truly an inspirational leader, and I just wanted to take a moment to shine a light on her book, which is co-authored by Judy Sheldon Cohen, called Recharging Judaism: How Civic Engagement is Good for Synagogues, Jews, and America. In this book, she describes, among many social justice projects, the formation of Shalom Green and the positive impact of community gardens on environmental advocacy in general. We are so grateful for the leadership of Rabbi Judy. Every project needs a champion, and she was ours. So we had the idea and everyone was bought in, and then we had the money to pay for it. So next we needed an expert to design and build the garden. We worked with the amazing Bobby Mabe, owner of Growth Through Gardening and certified horticultural therapist, who has since served as our part-time garden coordinator. The garden is a semicircular space. It's approximately 100 feet by 30 feet. It has 12 raised beds of various heights and sizes. The garden was designed to have aesthetically pleasing flowers and trees, but also keeping in mind plants and herbs that have religious association. So we're featuring things like pomegranates and fig trees, grapes, and parsley. Bobby also provided a yearly schedule of planting for the gardens, which includes just your kind of standard lettuce varieties, kales, cucumbers, tomatoes, okra, things that our community likes and things that we can grow easily based on our location. So I want to play for you guys quickly this video that's going to give you a sense of the building of the garden. And this, again, was when we first installed the garden.
I'm Yonatan. I'm on the garden committee. I also chair the volunteer committee, and we're out here today to help to bring community together, to bridge the different Jewish communities, as well as some with the greater community, to grow food and to feed the hungry.
My name's Darian Lewis, and I'm out here volunteering to help put together this garden using the wheelbarrow, spread some mulch and stuff. I think it's really important that We grow food for the less fortunate that can't really afford it for themselves. People on the street also think it's good that we're getting some solar panels out here. Self-sustainability is really important, and just out here volunteering, helping out, I think it's a great cause.
Hi, my name's Louise Frumpkin, and I have been involved in the garden project pretty much from the beginning. For me, this is a really exciting project. I have wanted to be involved in a garden to gardeners and years.
Hi, I'm Candace Servin. I've been on the garden committee since the beginning, and I'm really here because I really love gardening, and I think it's going to be fabulous for the community. We're going to help feed the hungry and really bring people together.
Okay, so that was how we started it, and how's it going? So 6 years later, we're still out there. In fact, this photo in the top here was just taken last weekend at our most recent garden work day. We are partnering still with Temple Bethel and Temple Israel, completing service days through both organizations. We're working with the Charlotte Jewish Preschool, the Charlotte Jewish Day School, the LJCC education programming and camps, educating the community about how to grow and nurture plants. We believe it is important for students preschool through teens to see how gardening can have a tangible and immediate impact on their lives. And we're reaching adults through hands-on education, volunteer opportunities, and service projects. In a non-pandemic year, the community garden serves on average about 1,000 people. It's a very busy space. And of course, the clients at JFS really appreciate receiving the fresh produce, and it helps fight food insecurity and improve health outcomes. The largest and most critical factor to the success of the garden is our continued ability to fund a part-time garden coordinator. This position, really helps us to maintain the garden. We have found that while we do have a robust volunteer base, the garden really needs a paid position to ensure its livelihood. Our garden coordinator makes recommendations with respect to religious and horticultural education programming, works with community garden volunteers to determine planting, harvesting, watering, and donation schedules, communicates garden maintenance and supply needs to Shalom Green, and makes site visits at least 2 times a week during the growing season to ensure the health and resilience of the garden. We apply for agency allocation grants from the Jewish Federation of Greater Charlotte each year, which does in part and for the most part fund this position. The remaining funds have been supported by our partner organizations and through our now annual Here We Grow fundraising campaign. Our annual operating budget for the garden alone is about $12,000 a year, and includes the part-time garden coordinator salary, maintenance, including soil, plants, irrigation equipment, and tools. I hope this overview gives you an idea of how we started the garden and how we maintain the garden. If you are considering a garden for your congregation, I cannot speak enough to the importance of having a 5-year plan that considers the ongoing maintenance and operation of your garden. For Shalom Green, we could not do this without the ongoing support of our community and our volunteers. It's a lot of work, but at the end of the day, we are so proud of the work we're doing for our community in produce donations, service opportunities, and horticultural education. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Summer. Reverend, I will turn it over to you.
Okay. I am Father Reggie Payne Weems. I am the vicar at Chapel of Christ the King, which is on 17th and Caldwell in the Optimist Park community. I have been there for approximately 5 years. When I started as their supply priest. I substituted for them twice a month while I was working full-time at Trinity Episcopal School as the head chaplain. When I arrived there, they had not had a priest for 6 years. There were, and still are, 12 pledging members. And they were a church in need of some direction. They had a program 30 years ago where they had an after-school program for about 80 kids that lived in the neighborhood. had tons of funds to run that program. It was a fantastic program. And in fact, one of the students from that program is now one of our volunteers and has done some remarkable work for the church. He graduated from Davidson and is a developer. He came to us a couple of months ago and said, I want to pay back to the neighborhood. I'd like to start a fund and pay for property tax for families in the neighborhood so they can stay in their homes. As you'll see later with the video and my conversation, we are in a neighborhood that where Habitat for Humanity homes are being bought for $200,000-300,000, and then they're torn down and they put an $800,000 house in its place. I'm not exaggerating. House 2 doors down from us sold 3 weeks ago for $823,000. Just to give you an idea of what's going on in the neighborhood. So this gentleman, along with a committee from the church and from the community, raised $13,000, or a little more than that, but they paid off the taxes for 13 families in the neighborhood. Just to give you an idea of how the ministry that they did 40 years ago paid off today. So they were sitting around waiting for the kids to come back, and the kids weren't coming back. And so we started working on an asset mapping exercise that led us to understand that what we were called to do now, the way we were called to love our neighbor now, was by the food ministry that we were already doing, by expanding that. And so what they were already doing when I got there is they were having a community lunch once a month that needed to be more than once a month. And they were going out every Sunday after church and handing out coffee, lemonade, water, and boiled eggs to anybody who needed them. And so it just became clear to me that this small group of people had a love for food and giving it out to people and feeding the community, which is a food desert. Closest grocery store to us, is the Harris Teeter on Central. So for those of you who know where Optimist Park is and know where that is, you have an understanding of that. So anyway, I have an extraordinary deacon who's an excellent grant writer. So one of the things I would say you need if you're going to do this ministry is somebody who's good at writing grants, or somebody who's willing to learn. She's so good, in fact, that I asked her to write, to create a document that explained to people how to write grants. She wrote a grant to the city. The city of Charlotte gave us a grant for $15,072 to create our edible landscape. And so we invited, and part of the grant was we had to have community members who were involved. We invited people from the community, from the old community who had been there 40 years, from the new community who lives in the townhomes and new houses that have come up in the community, as well as a couple of churches. The first thing we did is we had to clear our land. Our land had 17 diseased and dying trees on it. Holy Comforter had a bunch of men who grew up in Minnesota and Michigan, in that area, who loved cutting down trees. So they came over and cut down 17 trees in one day. And we had a chipper out there, and we chipped all the wood up, and that wood is now our mulch that we use in our garden. We also have had people out there from the University of North Carolina at Charlotte. The same gentleman who helped us with the tax funds, he helps run the Bonner Scholar program out of UNC Charlotte. So we had Bonner Scholars from UNC Charlotte helping us as well. We also have volunteers from Johnson C. Smith who've come over and helped as well. And they're going to actually do some classes with us. Some of their classes are going to come over and help us maintain the garden, ongoing maintenance. They also are growing stuff on their campus, which they're going to come over and help seed and start our farmers market, which we're planning on being a part of our ministry out of our garden. And so we have those communities, and I hope I'm not leaving out anybody. We have our experts on our site are from the North Carolina County Extension Office. We have a horticulturalist who comes out and walks around and helps us, gives us some advice on what to do, as well as some of you may know Reggie Singleton from Men's Place. He runs an organization called Men's Place that takes young African-American kids and they create urban gardens all over the city. They go to churches and talk about the work they're doing. And they also travel to places like Africa, countries in Africa, like Kenya and places like that. They also been to Egypt, I think. So Reggie helps us as well. And they also point us in the direction of a particular group that may be able to help us, like Tree Charlotte. In November, we planted 36 blueberry bushes, 15 peach and plum trees, and I think 8 fig trees, and something called a goji berry. Our goji berries, everybody's scratching their head wondering what in the world that is. We can't wait till they come up. Unfortunately, the deer have been eating those, so we're trying to figure out how to keep the deer away so we can actually grow some goji berries and see what they taste like. So we've finished our beds. Houses are still going down, and I'm just absolutely blown away what God can do, because this church of 12 members has created, with no money, has created this incredible space. And I look forward to coming back and talking to you in 6 years about what we have done in our community. One of our main goals, besides providing food for our neighbor, is to get our neighbors who live in the $820,000 house to sit down and to stand next to the people who live in the Habitat for Humanity home and garden together. It's a place for our two communities to gather and to be together. So I'd like to, at this point, share a film which kind of gives you some visuals of what I just told you. And then I'll show you, the film was taken back in November. And then I'll show you a brief slideshow of an update from November.
Let me just make sure that I shared my sound as well. There we go. Okay. Bear with me. Thank you.
Chapel of Christ the King is always seeking how to best respond to Jesus' invitation to love our neighbor as we love ourselves. 20 years ago, the chapel observed a neighborhood full of children of color in need of a safe and sacred place to be after school, and realized they could fill that need, and so they did. Well, the neighborhood is changing. The children are all grown up. Homes are being sold, demolished, and replaced by larger homes, apartments, and townhomes. The light rail is now 2 blocks away from the church, and there are a number of large residential complexes within 5 blocks of the church. Through the process of identifying physical, economic, and relational assets, also known as asset mapping, the chapel realized that our responsibility and desire for creation care can also serve the needs of our community. With the help of a $15,072 placemaking grant from the City of Charlotte and grant money from the diocese, we are in the process of redesigning and recreating our church grounds into an edible landscape, a growing and gathering space, complete with parking lawns for parking, worship, concerts, and farmers markets, Halp Hall paver patio, a pergola and raised vegetable beds, fruit tree orchard, and a blueberry bush borders, a greenhouse, all to be enjoyed with families, friends, and neighbors. It has been said that many hands make light work. From the very beginning of this ministry, collaboration and partnerships have shaped what we are doing and why we are doing it. On Saturday, November 7th, our partners and collaborators came together to dig holes, plant and mulch over 50 fruit trees and blueberry bushes. It was a wonderful day to practice creation care. Thank you to chapel volunteers, longtime and new neighbor volunteers, Holy Comforter volunteers, Bonner Scholar volunteers from UNC Charlotte, Black Student Union volunteers from UNC Charlotte, the City of Charlotte, and County Extension Office. Special thanks to grant writer extraordinaire, the Reverend Deacon Rebecca Yarborough. For more information about our project, please feel free to contact either the Reverend Reggie Payne Weens or the Reverend Deacon Rebecca Yarborough.
So the slideshow starts with the update on the very last picture you saw with the entire team standing in a field that was scraped down to the gravel. So the very next slide is what it looks like now. Oh, no, I was wrong. So this house is the house that in the video you saw being torn down. This is the lot where you saw the bulldozer ripping through the house. This is that lot. This house is now completed and already sold for $750,000. This is right next to the church. And we had tons of problem with the construction crew. They killed 4 of our fruit trees, which we have asked them to replace. But so that just to give you an idea of what's happening in the neighborhood, this house has replaced that one that is in the video, and that was in November, and they've already completed this house. This is not a completed picture of the house, but the house is done now, and they're finishing the floors, and they'll be completed. Next slide is slightly to the, if we're facing the house, slightly to the left of the house, and this is the field where everybody was standing in the last video. And the fruit trees that you see, the one you see there in the foreground, followed by the 5 that are behind it, average somewhere between 10 and 15 peaches that are already on the fruit trees. We weren't expecting any peaches this year, but the trees are full. For some reason, they decided to fruit this year. Tree Charlotte, who put the trees in, told us not to expect fruit for 2 or 3 years. So when I called them and told them we had fruit already, they were really shocked. The other thing I'd like to say about Tree Charlotte is they not only donated the trees to us, but they committed to watering them once a week for a year. So they have a watering service that they send to us that waters all the trees on the property, including the blueberry bushes, once a week, and we'll be doing that for the next 10 months. So just want to let you know that. Next slide. I don't remember what the next slide is. Oh, this is the same field from the other view. And the reason I wanted to show you this view is if you look at the yellow house in the background and go just to the left of it, that house is the house where Boris grew up, the guy who gave the $13,000, who raised the $13,000 to pay off the tax property bills. That house has now been demolished. That is an empty lot, as well as the house that's still left of that. Those two there are 2 empty lots together. And I imagine by next November, there will be 2 houses the size of the one you see there in the picture built in those 2 locations. Next slide. So these are our raised beds in front of the concrete platform that will be the pergola at some point soon. These beds, whenever I show people pictures of these beds, they go, "Dad, these beds are tall." Yes, they are 30 inches tall, which is ADA compliant, so that people in wheelchairs can roll right up to them and work in those beds. They were planted last Saturday, so they are full, and there are all kind of things in there: tomatoes, cucumbers, 8 or 9 different kinds of peppers. Just because there are, gosh, what else? Eggplants. There's a bed solely dedicated to herbs. So any kind of herb you can name, we have that in that bed. We have spinach and other stuff growing as well. In addition, you'll see, I think in the next slide, a 10 by 20. Oh, no, it's you can barely see it. It's just beyond the beds. It may be the next slide. You can go to the next one.
That is the last slide.
Oh, so just to the left of the beds, you can barely see it there. There's a 10 by 20 in-ground bed, and that has indeterminate tomatoes, so they get really tall, and it has okra, which I've never liked, but everybody's excited that we have a couple rows of okra in there. And we also have winter squash, butternut squash, summer squash, and watermelon in that patch as well. I just happened to be out there yesterday, and those condos right there, on the other side of those condos, right across the street, is the light rail. So to give you an idea of where we are. And then I found out yesterday that the apartment complex, the condos, are putting up a privacy fence that'll go right behind our fig trees, which go on a road down to the street over there. So when I go by there tonight to water, there will be a privacy fence up there. They told me they were putting it up today. It's how quick everything changes. It's the neighborhood is just transforming very quickly, and we're losing homes and losing people and gaining new people. The woman who bought the $823,000 house is an African-American woman from Michigan. That house has no yard. It has 5 feet of yard all the way around it. And just to give you an idea of the kind of homes they're building. And when I first saw that, I thought, who would want that? You know, Southerners like a yard, and the Southerners aren't buying those houses. It's people moving down from Michigan and Philadelphia and New York and stuff. And so that's what's going on in our neighborhood. You know, so far, several of our volunteers are coming right out of those condos right there. And just to the left of them are a set of townhomes, and people are coming out of those and helping, as well as our people from across the street in the old neighborhood. So we are looking at hopefully doing exactly what has been done by our Jewish brothers and sisters. We're thinking about acquiring a garden coordinator. Right now, that's me. I'm out there every day. I love it. So I'm out there every day just checking on things, watering and fertilizing and doing all the stuff that needs to be done. And I'm constantly on the phone with North Carolina Extension Office. They're great. I have them on speed dial, and I can call them anytime and say, hey, this is what I'm seeing. What should I do about it? So that's been a wonderful resource, and they've been very happy and gracious about it. They're also going to teach virtual classes for us, and in-person classes when appropriate. One of the things that I've done in a past church is we had people who came in and taught us how to use food as medicine. You know, in a neighborhood where people can't afford blood pressure medicine, I learned that there are ways you can control your blood pressure medicine with your diet. And so I'm hoping to have somebody come in and talk to us about that. And we've already had a couple people from Johnson C. Smith who have volunteered to come in and have some of those conversations with people in our community.
Thank you so much, both Summer and Father Reggie, for sharing. I'm going to kick off the questions, and I am going to pose a question to both of you. I'll let Summer answer first. Can you speak to any of the challenges you faced, and do you have any lessons learned or kind of big picture solutions to share with us and maybe anybody else who's thinking about starting a project like this?
Well, I would say for us, really having a pipeline of volunteers and using your volunteer leadership to the greatest advantage possible. Lisa Spritz, who's right here, is on our board. Our board is comprised entirely of volunteers from the community. The only person that we pay is our garden coordinator. Everyone else is in it for the love of it. And it is a lot of work. So it's really important to make sure that you have enough volunteers within your community to properly maintain the garden. I mean, I think we've all seen examples of community gardens that start off really strong, and then that volunteer enthusiasm wanes. And as we all know, gardens grow and weeds grow, and deer like to come and sample your selections. So you really need, it's a lot of work. And so you really need to make sure that you have a pipeline, a consistent pipeline of community members who know how to do all the things too. Then we have to teach people how to harvest, and we have properly, right? So we've created a YouTube channel that our volunteers can go to, and they can get tutorials for how do we want to harvest, and we have to organize them, you know, in terms of what days they come to harvest. So it's really important to just like manage the volunteers and have a really strong set of volunteer leadership willing to really make it their own and really love the space.
I absolutely agree. And if you don't have volunteers who love it, it's just not going to work. It is a lot of work, and it's a lot of work, and it requires people who care about it, who love it, and who understand and want to support the ministry. So if you can't get that buy-in from a group of volunteers that includes people inside the church or synagogue and the people in the community, it's just not going to happen. Which the city of Charlotte understood, which is why they required that as part of the grant. And we've never had a volunteer day that didn't have 4 or 5 different organizations represented at the volunteer day, and that's been absolutely wonderful. And we won't see the Bonner Scholars again. Most of them we won't see until the fall when they're back from school. But the ones who live in Charlotte, they 2 of them came up to me last time and said, "Can we just come by whenever and just weed?" And I said, "Sure. You know, you don't need a schedule for that." Because so if you just see weeds, you just come by and pick them. I was like, "Yeah, you know, we'll be glad to have you do that." So you got to have the buy-in, though. I absolutely agree with Summer on that. You got to have people who and we Summer, that's a great idea to do the YouTube videos, because we were trying to figure out how we were going to get everybody trained up, because you know, we had people who didn't even know that you're not supposed to water the leaves, you know, and so watering, everybody thinks, "Oh, I know how to do that. I just point a hose at the plant." Well, it's a little bit different than that. And so we realized that there is volunteers have to be educated, because one of the things we want to do is to teach our neighborhood how to grow in their space, and be able to go to their house and build a bed for them and teach them how to do it. And even if you live in an apartment, you can grow something. And we want to be able to teach everybody how to grow, and then how to prepare it. We're going to have cooking classes, and so we're looking at all those different things that can come out of this food ministry, and really empower our community to be a community that can grow food for themselves. So.
Yeah, on our YouTube channel, we actually do have some, you know, container gardening videos, and I'll be the first to admit, although I'm the chair for Shalom Green, I'm not a gardener myself before this. So I have learned personally ever so much. I now have about 8 square feet in my backyard. But I mean, yeah, before this I had killed cacti for sure, but I've learned so much. So it's really been a fun experience for me too.
Does anyone from our audience have questions for the speakers?
Well, this is Lisa, and thank you to everyone for this session. As Summer mentioned, I'm on the board of Shalom Green as well. And Father Reggie, I was wondering if you could tell me if your star, Rebecca, might be willing to chat with us about grant writing, because honestly, it is a very special talent, and it's not easy. And we actually did, Summer mentioned, our first official fundraising campaign this past year, and we raised enough funds from the community to keep it going, you know, for another year. But we want to investigate something that would be a little more lasting and sustainable. So I love that you guys went with the city. I think that's incredible.
Yeah, it was. I'm sure Rebecca just left. She was on the call.
Yeah.
I'm sure she would be willing to talk to you about that. We average, I mean, I know I wondered when I first got there how we were going to do this, you know, with 12 people. And we have about 20 who come, but we have 12 who pledge. How in the world we're going to do this? And since Rebecca and I have been there, we've averaged somewhere between $75,000 and $80,000 in grants a year. I mean, just to give you an idea, I mean, so we're always, I mean, I just wrote a grant a couple days ago that because believe it or not, for the last 4 years, I've been part-time. And so I just wrote a grant to move me from half-time to 3/4 time. So we'll see if that goes through. But we are constantly writing grants. We inherited a building that the maintenance has been deferred for 30 years. The electrical is probably 50, 60 years old, if not older. The plumbing, we found some terracotta pipes let alone stainless or the steel pipes. And so we're looking at trying to replace all that this year with PVC. And just so, I mean, just to give you an idea of what we inherited. And the diocese, you know, we are just blessed to be in the Diocese of North Carolina right now with a bishop who followed in, Bishop Curry, who understands some of the institutional racism that happened that let this church get to the physical point where it was, and to not have a priest for 6 years. And so they really stepped up and stepped in and providing funds and helping support what we're doing. But we still have to write the grants. So Rebecca has been extraordinary at that. She's helped me with my grant writing skills. Because the other thing we figured out was Rebecca can't be the only one writing grants. We have to, you know, because we're not always going to be there. And so we want to equip our congregation on writing grants. And so she's been training 3 people in the congregation, 3 out of our 12, who are learning how to write grants and giving them some confidence in doing it. So, you know, whenever we leave, they have the ability to do that. So I'm sure she would be glad to, because she is, I mean, she really is good at it, and has been doing it for many, many years.
That's fantastic. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for sharing, Father Reggie. I do want to be sensitive to the time, so I just want to pose one final question and ask Summer and Father Reggie if they have any closing words. Let you take it away. Either of you.
Oh, that was your question.
Yeah. It's do you have any closing thoughts? Any final parting words of wisdom, pearls of wisdom?
Want to go first, Summer?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So, well, for me, what we're doing is really about food insecurity. It's really the idea behind not just providing food pantry staples to people in our community and beyond. It's really about providing them with healthy, fresh sources of food, because the health outcomes are obvious, right? So it's one thing to give somebody pantry staples, but when you can start introducing folks to fresh produce, we have seen and we have heard so much positive feedback from JFS with regard to their now ability to provide fresh produce. Lisa and I have been talking about, you know, how can we move beyond just the you know, sort of confines of our garden and actually reach out to our community to kind of, I guess, pitch in your produce. There's a lot of people who have home gardens, and so we're thinking about, you know, how can we do more? And so I think that's the evolution of the thing. It is a space. It's a physical space. We recently were awarded a grant. We were able to add some really nice outdoor tables. So we have more of a classroom, an outdoor classroom in response to COVID. It's really fantastic that we can kind of bring people into the garden. But I think now we're kind of at a space and a place in our development where we can kind of like see how we can grow a little bit more. So I guess I would say, like plants, always evolve in your outlook and your outreach.
I absolutely agree. And one of the things we're looking to expand is our monthly community meal to our weekly community meal. And we hope to completely, or as much as we can, for that produce to come right out of the garden. And so I guess I would like to end with, you know, the reason I kept bringing up 12 people did this, or started this, is because if we can do it, anybody can do it. God will provide. I mean, I had no idea when we started this if we could do it. I knew that if it was the right thing, God would lift it up and it would happen. And it did take a lot of planning, and the asset mapping piece was key for us, because they were not convinced that this is something they could do until they understood they had the resources already to do it. And so that asset mapping, sitting down and naming everything that they had, really allowed them to have the vision to do this, and to believe they could do it. And I have a man who who is out there every time we work, and he's the hardest working person we have. And he has an illness. He has an illness that he shouldn't be doing that, but he's like a shark. It feeds him. I mean, I think if he stayed still, something would happen to him. And he's out there every time we have a work day, putting in a good 6 hours. He's the last one to leave. He just loves it. And it is humbling to watch people who just care that much and want to be a part of it that much. And like I said, if those 12 people can make this happen, anybody could do this. Anybody could do this.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Father Reggie and Summer, for your insights and sharing your expertise with our group. I want to direct folks back to Huva. Our closing session, the reflection and closing words, will be starting at 4:25. So in just a couple of minutes, you'll find the Zoom link back on Huva, and I will see you all there. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.